Hey guys, welcome back to DIY Porsche Guy. Doing a quick spark plug change today. So this should be a relatively easy video. This is another thing you want to do on your Porsche regularly. Some people like to do them every 30,000 miles max. I think that's a good idea. This car's got 55,000 miles on it, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time this has been done. So let's take a look. All right, so first thing we did here was we jacked up both sides of the rear end of the car so we have access to both sides of the engine, which is a little bit unusual for a spark plug change. You need to access two different places. And that's because your car has a Boxster engine, which means 3 cylinders point to the left, 3 cylinders point to the right. And the pistons go at each other like Boxsters. That's where the name comes from. And you combine that with the Roadster, which is the classic British top-down 2-seat convertible, and you get the name Boxster. So here is my Boxster, which has been jacked up, and I've actually already taken some of the panels off here. Let me show you that real quick. So this is the first panel to remove. This little job here. This was about, so I can get the orientation right. This was about here, and just came out with a 10 millimeter bolts and 1 Torx screw. So you remove that. Then that allows you to remove this larger panel right here in the wheel well. Okay, that comes out real nice and easy. This lip on the left side here was kind of tucked under the body panel, so you kind of got to work that out around the body panel. Other than that, very simple. And I noticed lots of, 15 years worth of accumulation of tiny rocks and dust and dirt in here that gets caught behind the plastic panel. So it was fun to kind of clean that out of there and do what you can to make your car look new. But that gives us access down here to the side of the engine. And now, let's see if I can get this on here. So that is the rearmost plug. It's actually the plug that goes over the spark plug, the coil. The rearmost one is here, and the middle one is there, and the front one, which is hardest to reach, is there. It's kind of tucked behind the bodywork, but we'll be able to get to it with a flex head. So we've got to remove these 2 Torx screws on each of these coils, and then we can pull the plugs out. So that's my next step. And these use the Torx screws as well. So if you've got a Porsche, definitely invest in a set of Torx screwdrivers and bits. You will get plenty of use out of them. So there's a little trick to removing these coil packs from the spark plugs. I wanted to show you real quick because it actually would be really simple except for the limited space you have to work in here. So see, I've already removed that first coil from the spark plug on that one. That's just a hole down into the cylinder of the engine there. And this one is the next one. And what you want to do is so you can take the bolts out, and then this coil pack will come straight out, but it will still be attached to the wires up here. So what you want to do is lift up this rubber gasket material and try to slide that up a little. There. It moved couple millimeters, so now I can get to the bottom of this plug right here. And now I want to stick my finger under this little latch, and there's a little clip that I unclip, so I kind of pull it towards me. I can feel it, but I can't quite get it to come. I'm gonna pull the gasket up a little higher. There we go. Sorry, this angle's impossible to see. There, I got it. All right, don't know if you can see that. Yeah, there's the one I already unclipped. And there's the one I slid this rubber material higher, and I unclipped the plug by pulling the slot towards me. There's a little plastic piece you just pull towards you. And now, when I take out this last bolt right here, this will come right out of the car. Okay, I removed the other bolt. And let's just see how the coil pack will come out here. There we go. Kind of still in that plug, so I'm going to slide that up. Okay, so I couldn't get it with one hand, but I used one hand on the plug, one hand on the coil, and the plug came right off. So now I'll just pull this, and this comes, just gotta wiggle it a little, right out of the car. And yeah, there's our first two coils, and those attached to the spark plug on the end there. This very last bolt on the left side of the frontmost coil pack here is really a stinker to get to. Let's see if I can even shoot it here. Let's see here. SLP2, there it is. See that guy right up there? So I'm going to use a flexible head socket wrench like this one, and hopefully this will get me up there. Problem is you can't really see once you stick anything up there, so we're gonna do our best and get that one out. We have success. The frontmost coil, ignition coil, is unbolted, and I just wiggle it, make sure it's totally loose from its wires there. And there's these little hoses that are in the way, but you gotta kind of wiggle around them. There we go. And there's number 3. All right. There's my 3 coil packs, 6 bolts from the driver's side of the car. And now we can swap out the spark plugs. These are the plugs that I purchased to replace what's in there. I think it comes from the factory with some Bosch plugs. I've heard mixed reviews on the Bosch replacements, so I was looking at NGK or Denso Iridium, and this is what was in stock. So this one seemed like good reviews, and price was right, so this is what I went with. Okay, so I'm under here working on this first spark plug in the socket, and I'm surprised how much resistance I'm encountering. I guess it's because I've got a bend in the socket, and you know, it's got to work against itself in the bend at the wrong angle. The bend I don't think is even doing that much because the entire bend is inside that hole in there. But it lets me change the angle on the socket wrench a little bit, because I think without the bend I couldn't raise this quite high enough to get a straight shot at it. So we're just gonna keep working on this here, and hopefully it'll be out in a second. Okay, and there we have it, one stock spark plug from a Porsche Boxster. This is quite the interesting prong arrangement they've got here. This is not what I expected. It's got 4 prongs, and they're all gapped from the side to the center point where the spark comes from. It's pretty interesting compared to the new ones. And let me show you what I used to extract the spark plugs. All right, so I just got a regular old socket wrench there and an extension, I don't know, about a 10 or 11 inches extension there. It didn't need to be, well, no, the length was about right for this job. And then the last piece I've got on here, so I picked this up from Advanced Auto Parts. Okay, and this last piece I've got on here is a 5/8 socket wrench driver. So it's got a rubber coating in there, so it's gentle with the connection to the spark plug, and it's deep enough to grab the head of it. And it's also got the flex bend on it, which just gives you a little bit more leeway to get to tight spots, to tricky spots like you have on a Boxster engine, where the spark plugs are not nice and accessible on top of the car. They're in the wheel wells. Fun. Yeah, so here's the stock Bosch plug on the right that came with the car. I'm sure that's original. And I'm replacing it with the Denso plug on the left here. And as you can see, that's a very different arrangement for the spark prong arrangement. So I'm sure they both work fine. It's just a spark. It's just like the the lighter that starts your campfire. It doesn't really matter how it works as long as it works. Okay, this is one thing that you don't usually hear about in the instructions. I torqued it down to 22 foot-pounds like instructed, but that socket has a nice solid fit onto that spark plug. So now the socket is still in the hole there, and I'm gonna go retrieve it with a pair of needle nose pliers because the extension on my socket wrench just popped right out of there when it was time to remove the socket, and it's stuck in there pretty good along with the spark plug. So now I've just got to grab that, pull it out. Hopefully that extraction goes cleanly. Okay, successful extraction of the socket, but that was a pain in the butt. I don't want that to happen again. I'm going to wrap tape around the end of this socket on my extension so it stays connected for future spark plugs. Glad I did the hard one first. The rest will be easier. Here's my beautiful MacGyvered solution of a duct tape socket and extension connected together. Now I won't lose it in there again. All right, here goes new spark plug number 2. You can see I've got my modified socket tool here. And let's see. Goes right in there. All right. Now I like to try to carefully start the threading before I'm cranking on it with the big wrench to make sure that it's just getting nice and easy on the threads. We don't want any cross threading in a spark plug. That's damaging your engine. So as long as we can turn this nice and easy with our fingers like this, then we know it's threading correctly. Don't want to put too much force on it. And once I get to a point where it nicely, smoothly stops, like right there, now I can't put any more pressure on it. So now I know it's threaded all the way in there. I'll switch to my torque wrench. All right, third spark plug going in here. Don't expect any trouble since this is the easiest one to access. I do not like working on this stuff with one hand. I don't know how some of those YouTube mechanics do everything one-handed. We get a lot of wrist time on my camera there. Let's see. So let's, righty-tighty is the way you want to go there. And it feels like it's threading nice and clean. That's what you want. All right, so I'm gonna. There, that feels like I got to the end there. And I'm gonna switch to torque wrench and torque it down to 22 foot-pounds. Okay, I replaced the first coil pack. I did the front one first, and the bolt is just in place there. It's not torqued down yet. I noticed that the torque specs on these bolts is only 7 foot-pounds. I guess they're kind of small, and they've just got to barely hold the coil packs in place. So I'm gonna see if I can even set my torque wrench to that low of a spec. Let's see what we got. All right, here's my lovely torque wrench, and I'm gonna unlock it down here. Let's see. Yeah, they put this in inch pounds for some reason, so they always make me do lots of math. So it looks like the lowest this torque wrench actually goes and will still work is 120 inch pounds, which is the same as 10 foot-pounds. So I guess if I just start from here and reduce it, I can turn it. These are reducing foot-pounds here, these settings. If I just reduce it by 3 from the minimum, that should give me 7 foot-pounds, but hopefully that will work. It's basically going to be hand tight. It's very loose. Okay, after a little experimentation, I don't even think my torque wrench can measure a value as small as 7 foot-pounds. It didn't seem to want to click at that low level. So what I did is I just took my smallest socket wrench here and I hold it right in the middle, so it's basically hand tight. And then as soon as I feel decent resistance without using the lever at all, so I'm just screwing from the middle, then I stop. And I figure that's gonna be the minimum tightness, the 7 foot-pounds. good estimate anyway. If you want to accurately measure the 7 foot-pounds on these bolts, go ahead and get a mini torque wrench, but I feel pretty good about doing them hand tight by holding onto the middle of the socket wrench. Okay, I've got this first coil pack bolted back in, and then after you do that, you want to make sure you remember to connect that plug up above with the wires with a solid click and pull the rubber gasket back down over it. That would be very sad to replace all your spark plugs and your coil packs and forget to hook them up. So let's remember that, and then we're almost done here. Okay, I finished taking the 3 ignition coils off of the spark plugs on the right side, and we're on the passenger side of the car now. They were a little trickier in some spots. I was surprised that the farthest back one, the rear one, actually had some difficult clearance in order to get to the bolts that hold in the ignition cable there. Just some really, there's not a lot of room to work because of these coolant lines that run right here. See those pipes? They kind of block the access for your socket wrench. So what I found works well is I first tried this little guy. It's kind of a flexi screwdriver tool, but I found I was not able to apply enough force to break the bolts loose using this. So what I found worked best to get these off on this side with the tight clearance is I took my Torx bit here and I would fit that first into the bolt holding in the ignition coil. And once that was in place, I would take this guy here, which is not a normal ratcheting socket wrench, but see, it's got this very small swivel head. So that lets you get into a tighter spot and get the angle you need, and then you break it loose. And once you've just done like a quarter turn and broken it loose, you don't even need any socket wrench anymore. Those bolts are so little. I would just use my hand and the bit and loosen them the rest of the way. So that helped a lot for getting those ignition coils out of there. You can see those holes. That's where the spark plugs go. And that one up there is the one that had the least amount of clearance, the top one on the furthest rear spark plug there. Cylinder, I guess I should say. All right, moving on to taking out the spark plugs themselves. Hey, so I found out the farthest forward spark plug there on the passenger side of the engine is a bit of a bugger, and I actually had to go get an additional tool to get it out. You know, I had that socket wrench that I had taped up, but the bend wasn't in the right place to get to this particular one. So I went and got this little 6-inch extension here, and that, along with a socket wrench 5/8 puller, that was the right distance to come out of the socket, and then I'm assembling it here, and then make the turn to a ratcheting socket wrench, and then I could get it out properly. Yeah, the other one had the flex point only about 3 or 4 inches from the end, and that just was not working for this last one here. I can try to show you where that is. So here is underneath that hole way in there. You see that farthest forward hole here. So there's not a lot of space to work to come out of it. Yeah, I can't even get to it here while trying to film. Can't even put my hand in there. But yeah, you're gonna want a short extension so you can make that turn with your socket wrench. Here I've got the new extension stuck into the socket right there, and you can see how there's not much room That's why you need a short extension on this one, because there's lots of pipes running behind it, and it's just way up there, almost out of the wheel well. So I'm reaching up into the wheel well just to get it and turn it. And once I get this thing tightened, again, I'm replacing the new spark plug here. Then I can torque it down. Hopefully I can fit my torque wrench up there. I think it will just fit because the extension is the right size. There we go. There, it's tightened down by hand now, and I'll move on to torquing it down. Okay, down to the last step here. I just put the wheel well panel back in here. It just takes 2 torque screws down here, one 10mm nut up here. There's another 10mm nut here, but that goes on after you've put this other panel in place. So this is the last panel you put in place right here, which is covering up access to the engine back there. And this one just takes one 10mm nut, 2 of the Torx. I'm sorry, 2 10mm nuts, 1 Torx screw, and then we are done and we can put the wheel back on and get back to motoring. So that is it for the spark plug install. Happy motoring, guys. Hey, so the spark plug job is all completed for the Porsche Boxster here, and the car's running great. Engine feels good. I wanted to show you this last little mod I did here. I put new Porsche lettering on the back of the car. It used to have this this Boxster logo right here, which kind of has some worn spot and some missing paint. I don't know if you can really see that in the video, but the corners are kind of worn off, and I just thought this type of logo looked a little bit more modern. So that's my latest change. And I just wanted to say also that you do all these little maintenance changes to the car, and it's kind of funny because you wonder, oh, did that really make a difference? Does it really feel better? I think it, I think it's shifting a little smoother. I think the engine is a tiny bit more responsive, but it's hard to tell with each change if you've really made a difference or not. But I gotta say, now that I've done basically everything you can do to get this car back to as new condition, I've changed every single fluid, the belts, the pulleys, the spark plugs, the oil, everything I can do is now pretty much done on this car. Only thing left to tackle now is actual mods, because I've just been doing maintenance for the most part. But I gotta say, the car drives great. It feels practically like new. Engine, shifter, brakes, everything feels good, steering. So it really does improve the driving experience and the ownership experience if you take care of all these things on your car. Whether you take care of them yourself or bring it to a qualified shop, both are good solutions, but I really like the pride of ownership that comes with doing the work myself. So that's it. Click the bell, like and subscribe and all that jazz. This is DIY Porsche Guy. Have a great day, everybody.